There was once a manager of mine in one of my previous companies, and one day he came to us with a complaint. And it turns out there was a new senior manager who had joined the company, and he was really furious about it. Why? Because he had to report into this new senior manager who was once his junior in a different company. So turns out my manager once mentored this man who is now a senior manager in the company, and he couldn't accept it that his junior had surpassed him and turned into a senior manager to whom he was supposed to report. Welcome to my channel. Today we explore why people mock those who rise above them. We will decode cognitive dissonance and ego defense, Jungian shadow, anchoring bias. My manager's reaction wasn't about the senior manager. It was actually about his own internal ego and self-preservation. My manager held a core belief, a very strong belief, that he was superior to everyone. And that was very visible in the way he behaved with all of us back then. In his belief, he was experienced, capable, and superior to everyone he had ever trained. Which is why when one of his juniors, with years of hard work, perseverance, and dedication, reached to a position above him, he could not accept it because his ego came in the way. It created an intense psychological discomfort called cognitive dissonance. Sometimes we rely heavily on the first information we receive about a person. Someone you met in school, someone you met in college, the first time you met someone at work, you rely on that first version 1.0 version of that person, and it remains in your head that even after 10 or 20 years, the person will still remain the same. Many of us do not accept that this person would have gone through various changes in their own life, career, personal, and they would have reached a stage in their life which you're seeing today, which will be very different from the version 1.0 that you saw back then in college or at the beginning of a career. And this is called anchoring. You're anchoring yourself to this person whom you knew in the past, which is why you cannot accept the person he has become today. And this is what led to my manager mocking his senior manager in front of all of us, because accepting that the senior manager actually had worked extremely hard, probably had learned new skills, and was probably suited for the position. By doing so, by acknowledging that, he would also acknowledge his own stagnation. In the Jungian lens of shadow and projection, the new boss probably represented my manager's shadow, the unlived potential of his life. Probably this was also his dream, but either he didn't have the time or the skills to reach that position in that period of time. The senior manager's trajectory of his own career kind of put a harsh spotlight on my manager's lack of progression in his own career. By mocking his senior manager behind his back to his current juniors and saying that this man didn't know anything in the past, how dare he become a manager, he was actually only projecting his own insecurities. And it was very vividly visible. There are lots of forces at play here. Human beings generally form hierarchies in their mind. We believe hierarchies are set in stone. I was once above him, so I should always stay above him. How dare he take over a position above me? And what, he expects me to report to him now? His mocking was a way to restore his own hierarchy in the system, which he had already lost. He thought constantly retelling the story would keep him at the top, where he wanted to be. When a former junior whom you have trained surpasses you in every possible way, one of the things the mentors always feel is, have I stagnated? Did I not do enough? Am I not capable enough? Did I waste all these 10 years of my life? And suddenly, the ego gets bruised, and mocking becomes a way of psychologically shielding yourself. By telling the story repeatedly to people, he's in some sense recruiting all of us He's recruiting all the juniors around him. So he can kind of create a mob situation. And where he's asserting himself by saying, see, I am senior to all of you. So I am senior to him too. He does not know anything. How is he a senior manager? It was a way of him asserting his hierarchy when he wasn't part of it anymore. So by gossiping, he was trying to anchor himself to that version of himself that was there in the past. He was still anchoring himself to that position. Look, in real life, roles change, people change, hierarchies flip. People move around, they come back as managers, people move around again, they come back as CEOs. You can't control that. All you can control is your own growth. Unfortunately, human ego wants everything to be frozen in time at a time when you were at your best and everyone else were at their worst. And that flips over and over again. Now, when he kept saying the senior manager didn't know anything, do you think it was technically true? Maybe not. Maybe it was just narrative control. So he was controlling the narrative so that he could recruit people and he could preserve his own ego. But why was he trying to control the narrative? Why was he spreading this information to so many of us as soon as the new senior manager joined the company? Because he wanted witnesses. His ego wanted witnesses. It needed the applause that, oh, yay, you're great and you're such a good manager. So he wanted that. Humans don't just want status. They want acknowledged status. We think hierarchies are fixed, roles are permanent, the past defines the future. But life is fluid. People evolve. Juniors become managers. Student becomes the master. Ego resists this impermanence. It wants to stay frozen. Mocking is the ego's attempt to freeze time. When a manager was mocking this senior manager, he was actually mourning the loss of his own identity. He was also, I think, angry at a reminder that this growth was possible, that he could have achieved it. He just didn't do it himself. So the next time you hear someone mock someone else for achieving something great, just know that they're not mocking the person. It's their ego talking. It's their own incompetence talking. They're not talking about this other person, they're talking about their own identity. Nietzsche talks about resentment and will to power. The senior manager had the will to power, the drive to expand, overcome hurdles, and evolve. The senior manager embodies resentment, the bitterness of someone who cannot grow, so he attacks the one who did. Mockery is usually the weapon of the powerless. In Buddhism, it is framed as attachment to identity. He believes that his identity is that I am superior. So when that fails, and reality changes, his attachment is what is causing him grief and suffering. Freud called this ego defense. He's basically projecting. When he says he's unworthy, he's basically saying, I am unworthy. He is, in some sense, angry at himself and he's projecting it onto the senior manager. Sartre would say this manager of mine is refusing authenticity. Instead of taking responsibility for his own actions, he's trying to hide behind a story. So if you're facing this at your workplace right now, where someone, your colleague, your manager, or even in regular life, if your friend, your neighbor, or your relative sees someone who has grown above and beyond and who's doing really well for themselves and mocks them, and you don't feel the same, then do not let your emotions get tangled up with their ego. Don't allow them to recruit you into their vicious cycle of jealousy. Stay away from all of these things and concentrate on your life and growing in your own field, because you owe yourself a responsibility to grow as a person and in your career. Getting involved in office gossip, just remember, has serious consequences. So if you are caught getting involved in office gossip, just read your employment contracts. In every employment contract, gossiping and spreading rumors is considered a negative thing. You could get fired. So if you hear someone else gossiping about a senior manager or any colleague at work, try to step away from it. Don't get involved in unnecessary gossip, even in real life. Make it a habit to step away from people who are spreading false information or gossip, which is unfound for, just because someone is doing well. Also, if possible, compliment the person who's doing really well so that they know that you're not part of this circle. If you enjoyed my deep dive into philosophical and psychological angle of everyday human behavior, please subscribe to Decoding Pamita. Thank you.